Hey there. So today we are in Leviticus Chapter 16, a very important chapter in the book of Leviticus because it talks about the greatest day of the year for the children of Israel. And this was the Day of Atonement. Now, the Hebrew word for atone means to cover. So on this day, the priest, the high priest, would go into the most holy place to make atonement for the sins of the nation. So the people would confess their sins, and then the high priest would be the one to make atonement for them before the Lord. So the basic gist of this day was that sacrifices would be made to the Lord, blood would be shed, and then that would be the covering of the sins of the people. Now, there were specific instructions that Aaron, who was the high priest, was supposed to do. There were specific animals that he was supposed to bring. Now, one interesting thing that I saw in this particular scripture is an instruction that God gives to Moses about Aaron. God says, tell Aaron that he can't come to the most holy place whenever he pleases, or else he would die. Okay? This holy place was so holy that you couldn't just walk into it anyhow, regardless of your position. Aaron was the high priest, but he couldn't just get into this place anyhow, right? Now, another interesting thing I saw in this particular chapter is that before Aaron could atone for the sins of the nation, he had to atone for his own sins first. So Aaron was supposed to offer a bull as a sin offering and then a ram for a burnt offering before the Lord. So he had to atone for his own sins first. And then he could now get the animals for the nation. And there were two animals, actually, two goats for the nation. One goat would be killed, the other one would be used as a scapegoat. Now, just there was something interesting the Lord was trying to communicate here, and that's why they used two goats. It was trying to represent the two ways in which God was dealing with their sin. The first way was that God was forgiving their sin through the first goat, which was sacrificed, right? The second way was that he was removing the guilt of the people, because it's one thing to forgive your sin, it's another thing to actually remove the guilt of that sin. And so many of us are actually dealing with the remnants of the sins that we have committed. The sins have been forgiven, but the condemnation is still wallowing in your mind. The guilt, the shame is still gripping you so hard. And so God here was trying to communicate the two ways in which he was dealing with their sins. And number one was to remove the sins. Number two was to remove the shame and the guilt. And that's why they used a scapegoat. Now, what they would do with this scapegoat is that they would confess all the sins of the nation. I can't imagine how long that took, because you can imagine having to confess the sins even for yourself. That's a lot. But then to confess the sins of a small family is still a lot. To confess the sins of a whole nation was crazy. I can't imagine what Aaron had to go through, to have to confess theft, to have to confess fornication, adultery, to have to confess lying, perversion, immorality. Like, there was so much that I can't imagine having to confess the sins of Zambia today. All right? I just put that into thought or put that into perspective. But Aaron had to do that. And then that scapegoat would then not be killed, but it would be allowed to go away into the wilderness. And there was a person who was specifically tasked to do that, to give the scapegoat away into the wilderness. Somehow I'm thinking that the scapegoat was probably like crazy carrying all that sin. I don't know how it was looking at the time they were releasing it into the wilderness, but I'm just thinking that it was probably like crazy, But that person who was even tasked to do that would also have to even wash themselves clean. That's how much God really hated sin, that just because you came into contact with the scapegoat, you even had to wash yourself clean. Another interesting thing that I found, in the book of Leviticus 16 is that there were specific garments that Aaron had to wear whenever he was going into this most holy place, which was done every year. The Day of Atonement was done every year. So there was some linen that he was supposed to wear, some garments he was supposed to wear, a sash around him that he was supposed to wear, and even a turban on his head. Now, the Bible actually says that these were sacred garments and he had to wash himself with water before he could wear them. And so I really tend to think about it because these priests were priests, they were the leaders, but God still wanted them clean. And it doesn't matter what position you hold. I know that right now we can go to God directly, but there's still a way we must go to him. He calls himself our friend, but that doesn't mean that we should just carelessly go before the throne of God. We should still go before him with reverence. We should still go before him, prepared, even in prayer. Still go before him with humility. Even if we're going before him with boldness, it doesn't mean that we should go before him unprepared or with pride, right? So anyway, Aaron did all those things for the people. There was blood sprinkling. There were so many things that he had to do for the people until he could atone for their sins. And after that, he was also still supposed to wash himself clean. And there was something, the other thing that I found interesting, something he needed to do was that he was going into the most holy place with a censer. Now, a censer is like a dish, right? Like a shallow bowl that was hanging on it was hung by 2 chains, or it was carried with tongs. Now, inside the censer, they would put a combination of sweet smelling spices and everything like that. And then they would put some burning coals so that the spices could now, produce that incense, right? So on the Day of Atonement, the high priest was supposed to go and enter with this censer carrying the smoke. And one of the reasons for that was that the smoke would separate Aaron from the most holy place. So this smoke was literally acting as a shield, because direct contact with the most holy place was not advisable. He could have died. But also the fact that it was producing sweet smelling incense was also helping with the foul smell that would come out from all these sacrifices and the blood and the burning of the animals that was done in this place. And I was actually thinking about it because I was wondering how that place smelled. You can imagine all the animals, the goats, the cows, the blood, and everything like that. But this censer would help with that.